Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we aren't just turning a page here. We are stepping off the elevator and walking straight into this just deeply claustrophobic, humid, terrifying nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely terrifying.
Right. We are tackling the beginning of the sixth floor in the dungeon crawler Carl saga, specifically breaking down the source material from the Butcher's Masquerade. And look, if you thought the train systems of the Iron Tangle were a headache or the bubbles of the fourth floor were bad, you honestly haven't seen anything yet. We are entering the hunting grounds.
It is a massive, a fundamental paradigm shift. We are moving from what was essentially a survival-based environment against the dungeon itself, right? So traps, mobs, geography to a direct high-stakes player versus player ecosystem.
Yeah.
The stakes have shifted completely from survive the room to survive the sentient person who is specifically hunting you.
Exactly. And the scale of this place, it is mind-boggling. Let's set the stage for you before we even get to the people trying to kill our heroes.
Yeah.
The sixth floor is massive. We are talking about 100,000 square kilometers of jungle.
Right.
The source material literally compares it to the landmass of Iceland. It's a massive, overgrown version of the third floor's layout. So it's this mix of ruins and swamps and just incredibly dense foliage.
And that familiarity is actually a trap in itself.
Oh, totally.
Because the layout mimics the third floor, which the crawlers know, but it's distorted, it's overgrown, sightlines are terrible. And the twist isn't just the terrain, right? It's the population. It isn't just mobs spawning in the darkness anymore.
Right. This is the big hook of the floor. The Dungeon Administration has released over 1,000 sentient hunters onto this map. These aren't mindless zombies or programmed robots following a patrol path.
No, not at all.
These are aliens, former crawlers, mercenaries, people with massive debts to pay or personal grudges to settle. They've been waiting in the lobby essentially for weeks, just gearing up to murder the crawlers.
And they aren't starting from scratch, which is the truly terrifying part of the whole setup. They start at level 50. Now, for context, most crawlers at this stage are hovering around that level, or even lower.
Yeah, mostly lower.
But the showrunners, the Boran Corporation running this broadcast, they have bumped the hunters up an additional 20 levels. And they do this, quote unquote, in the spirit of fairness.
Fairness.
Yes. So you have level 70 assassins tracking level 40 to 50 players.
I love how the dungeon defines fairness. Here is 1,000 people who want to kill you for your shoes, so let's make them mathematically stronger than you. And they gain power as they kill right.
They do. It is a scaling threat. The more successful a hunter is, the more dangerous they become. Yeah. It creates this perverse incentive structure where the scariest threats on the map are the ones who have already proven they can easily kill you.
Right.
And their mission is simple. Hunt the current crawlers to take their gear, their inventory, and their lives. It is literally a harvest.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the events of the first 30 hours on the sixth floor, because it is incredibly dense. We are going to cover everything from some intense legal battles.
Which is wild.
Yes, actual lawyers in a death dungeon. We'll cover that, and an explosive entry into the main city of Zuccow, some bizarre new class choices for Carl and Donut, and eventually the completely hostile takeover of a bear person settlement.
It is a complete roller coaster of bureaucracy and violence. And interestingly enough, we have to start with the bureaucracy.
Yeah, we do.
Because before the fighting even starts, Carl is fighting for his life in a corporate office.
Right, the liaison meeting. Carl is summoned to see Orin, the Valtai liaison. And just for you listening, if you need a visual on Orin, he is the guy with the fishbowl head and the parasitic worm living inside it. He is basically just a high-tech suit for a gross little worm.
Exactly. Yeah. Orin represents the purely bureaucratic side of the syndicate. And right now, Orin is in a terrible bind. Carl possesses an item called the Gate of the Feral Gods. We saw him acquire this at the end of the last floor. It is, for all intents and purposes, a complete game breaker.
Literally. I mean, Orin admits that when the AI created this item, it set off so many internal checks and balances that it actually crashed the system. It circumvents the core rules. It has the potential to wipe out the entire floor in less than an hour.
And that creates a fascinating dilemma for the showrunners. The system, the AI controlling the dungeon, it cannot forcibly take the item back without violating its own internal logic regarding crawler inventory rights.
Right. The AI is super weird about its rules.
Very strict. It loves chaos, but it loves its foundational rules more. But the showrunners, the corporations running the broadcast, they cannot allow Carl to keep it because he could end the season immediately.
Yeah.
If he uses that gate, everyone dies, the show ends, and they lose billions in intergalactic ad revenue.
So it turns into a total standoff. Oren tries to bully him, of course.
Sure.
He threatens to accelerate Carl, which is just a polite corporate euphemism for murder him immediately.
Right.
Or he threatens to shut down the floor portals, which would kill thousands of other innocent crawlers. Classic syndicate tactics. They want him to voluntarily give it up so their hands are clean on the broadcast.
It is extortion. Plain and simple. Give us the nuke or we kill your friends. But Carl does something completely unexpected here. He knows the rules better than they think he does. He demands a lawyer. And because of the legal complexity of the situation, the system actually grants him one.
Enter Quasar. Oh my god, this character. I think he might be my absolute favorite NPC introduction in the source material so far.
He is fantastic.
He is a nullian. A null. Picture a classic gray alien, right? Big head, big black eyes, maybe 4.5 feet tall. But he's wearing this incredibly cheap suit with a hula girl tie, and he's vaping on a pixelated smoke pin.
Quasar is a fantastic addition to the lore because he represents the cynical, gritty underbelly of the galaxy's legal system. He is fast-talking, he is rude, and he has absolutely zero respect for the administration. He hates the liaisons. He exists purely in the gray areas of the law. He is basically a sleazy defense attorney from a 1940s noir film, but transposed into space.
His introduction is just legendary. He sits down and tells Carl, look, the syndicate bends you over, I am the condom.
It is a crude metaphor, but deeply accurate for their situation.
Yeah.
He cannot stop the screwing, as it were, because the syndicate is just too powerful. But he can offer protection against the worst permanent diseases.
Yeah.
So Quasar negotiates a deal. Carl agrees to turn in the gate temporarily. He will get it back on the 9th floor, and in exchange, he keeps his life. But Quasar pushes for more. He knows Oren is desperate to get this off his desk.
So he gets collateral. This is the really cool part of the negotiation. He gets 4 mercenaries. Bomo the Sledge Clayton and Very Solon. These are high-level NPC bodyguards. But the kicker here is that Quasar negotiated for specific high-level spells for them.
This was Quasar's true brilliance in the scene. He realized that raw muscle isn't enough on the 6th floor. Mercenaries die all the time. But spells are utility. He negotiated for the mercenaries to have spells that Carl can actually utilize strategically, specifically a teleportation spell called Teleport to Stairwell and a mysterious spell called Zurzura.
Let's focus on that teleport spell first again. Teleport to Stairwell. It sounds simple, but in a hunting ground environment that is massive.
It is everything. It allows them to jump to any mapped exit on the floor. It is a massive tactical advantage when you are being hunted by level 70 assassins. It is essentially a get-out-of-jail-free card, but with a very long 25-day cooldown.
Right.
Secures their mobility. It means they can escape a cornered situation at least once, or, as we will see very shortly, they can use it offensively to ruin everyone's day.
While this entire legal drama is unfolding, the crawlers also have to pick their class specializations for the 6th floor. Carl has a really tough choice to make here. He eventually chooses Agent Provocateur.
He had 3 choices, and they really highlight the different evolutionary paths his character could have taken. There was Revolutionary, which was strength and melee-focused, basically making him a super tank leading from the front lines. There was Guerrilla, which was dexterity and trap-focused, very stealthy. And then Agent Provocateur, which is intelligence and explosives-focused.
He goes with the explosives, which is interesting. Why? I mean, Carl punches things. That is his whole brand. Why pivot to an intelligence build?
2 main reasons. First is the Advanced Bomb Maker's Workshop. This gives him a virtual studio where he can run simulations. He can build bombs in a purely virtual space, test them and fail without blowing himself up or wasting his precious physical materials.
Oh, wow.
For a guy who relies on anarchy and improvised explosives, that is invaluable. He can perfect the recipe before mixing the volatile chemicals.
That makes total sense. It is like a flight simulator for bomb makers.
Exactly. And second, it boosts his intelligence stat significantly. Carl has been neglecting his intelligence stat, but he desperately needs it to power his spells like heal and his various shielding abilities. The game mechanics are essentially forcing him to become more well-rounded. He cannot just be a brute anymore. He has to be a highly intelligent brute.
I feel like Agent Provocateur is just the perfect title for Carl emotionally, too, at this point in the story. He is not a traditional soldier. He is a chaotic element. He is a saboteur. And speaking of chaotic elements, let's talk about Donut's choice. She gets a new class called Legendary Diva.
It is certainly a choice. It is a double-edged sword wrapped in a lot of glitter. It is essentially a bard class. The mechanics are standard RPG fare where her singing casts spells and buffs the party.
But there is a catch, a really big one.
A significant catch. The system calculates the potency of her spells based on the quality of her performance. She has to sing in key.
And according to the source material, Donut sounds like a helium-drunk cat being crushed by a steamroller.
Right, so it renders her new class almost entirely useless initially. If she sings badly, the spells fizzle out or they have incredibly weak effects. It is a very cruel joke by the AI. However, the spells themselves are incredibly powerful on paper.
Yeah, what were they again?
Standing Ovation busts the party's dexterity and casting speed. Entourage creates illusionary clones to distract enemies, and Laundry Day strips the armor off opponents.
Laundry Day is just hilarious. You sing a song and the enemy's pants magically fall down.
It sounds totally ridiculous, but it is actually tactical genius disguised as comedy. In this game, damage mitigation is everything. Armor is what saves lives. If you can magically strip a tank of their armor, literally debuff their physical defense to 0 by removing their gear, they become incredibly soft targets.
Right.
It is a game changer, but only if she can ever learn to carry a tune. They're looking for an auto-tune item, a golden throat enchantment, but they haven't found one yet. So right now, she is mostly just screaming at people in combat.
So they are fully geared up. They have their mercenaries, Bomo the Sledge, Clayton, and Very Sullen. They have their new classes. And instead of playing it safe and finding a hole to hide in, they decide to do the most Carl thing possible. They use that new teleport spell immediately to jump directly to Zakau, the main city where all the hunters are gathered.
This is a brilliant preemptive strike. The hunters are currently in a grace period. They are sequestered in this 1950s-style city, drinking and partying before the hunt officially begins. They assume they are perfectly safe. Because the crawlers are supposed to be terrified and running for the deepest parts of the jungle, the hunters think they are the apex predators. Carl decides to remind them very violently that he is the one who knocks.
The visual aesthetic of Zakau is wild. It is described as having this mid-century modern look. There is a club called the Desperado Club that looks like a retro drive-in diner with a huge neon sign, and the hunters are just totally wasted.
It is the ultimate predator tactic. Carl and Donut use invisibility potions and infrared vision. They completely stop communicating verbally to avoid any detection. They move quietly through the city, planting what Carl calls barrel bombs.
Let's break down the barrel bombs, because Carl really loves his bombs, and the engineering here is specific.
These aren't just sticks of dynamite. It is gunpowder dynamite and smoke curtains all packed tightly into massive barrels he has stored in his magical inventory. He is planting them in the narrow alleyways between the clubs. It is incredibly high-stakes stealth. One wrong move, one bumped table, and they are instantly dead. Carl even has to disarm physical traps that are already set up in the city by the paranoid hunters. He is crawling through enemy territory surrounded by level 70 killers, placing massive explosives at their feet while they drink their cocktails.
And this is where we see the Ring of Divine Suffering come into play. This is an item Carl got from Frank Hewen on the previous floor.
This ring is a fascinating mechanic that strictly forces aggression. Passively, it increases his stats by 5%, which is a nice base buff, but its active ability allows him to digitally mark a target. If he kills the marked target, he gets a permanent +1 to a stat.
But the risk is insane. If he marks them, he gets a severe debuff called Left to Fester. He cannot heal. No potions, no spells, no passive regeneration. He cannot heal a single hit point until that specific target dies. It is literally do or die.
Exactly. And he chooses to use it right here in the middle of a city filled with hundreds of enemies. He targets a draconian hunter named Chindua. The poor guy is stumbling drunk holding a literal cocktail with a little paper umbrella. Carl uses him purely as bait.
It is so brutal. Carl is chatting him up while invisible or barely visible, just whispering to him from the shadows. The guy is completely confused, drunk, looking around trying to find the voice. Then Carl targets a flying hunter named Zindi. She is a mantis, the sister of a very famous hunter named Vra. Carl uses the ring's super spreader ability to mark her all the way from the ground.
This shows Carl's true tactical evolution. He is not just reacting anymore, he's deliberately layering game mechanics. He marks the flyer, then pulls out a multi-launcher with homing rockets. He knows if he misses this shot, he cannot heal from any counterattack. He is betting his entire run on this opening salvo.
I love the description of this moment in the text. He fires the rockets. Zindi tries to frantically fly away. Her personal shield pops under the stress, and then boom, she is blown right out of the sky. The system announces Hunter-Killer ×1.
And then the real chaos starts. Carl immediately detonates the barrel bombs in the alleys. It is classified by the system at the mass casualty event. The front entrance to the Desperado Club is totally destroyed, trapping dozens of hunters inside the burning building. The smoke curtains create massive visual confusion. But their escape plan gets incredibly messy.
Oh, it is a total disaster. They are running for their lives through the streets. Traps are going off everywhere, including one specific trap that starts playing Motley Crue's Kickstart My Heart at maximum volume, which completely gives away their position, which is just cinematic perfection, honestly. Running for your life to Motley Crue while explosions go off behind you.
It is very cinematic, but it attracts the crossbow snipers. Carl gets hit with heavy bolts that cause a severe stacking bleed effect. He is rapidly bleeding out and nearly dead. And remember, because of the chaos, the system hasn't fully confirmed the kill on Chindua immediately, or perhaps he marked another target in the confusion. The point is, he is bleeding, he is running, and he is completely vulnerable.
He absolutely would have died right there in the street if not for the sudden intervention of Prepotente and Miriam Dom.
This is a reunion we've really been waiting for in the narrative.
Let's unpack this new alliance. We haven't seen Prepotente, the screaming goat crawler, in quite a while, and he has changed significantly.
He is now a profane vitiate. He is extremely high level, sitting at number 3 on the global leaderboard, and his handler Miriam Dom has evolved into a vampire shepherd.
A vampire shepherd. That sounds like two concepts that really shouldn't go together. Shepherd strongly implies caring for a gentle flock. Vampire implies, well, eating them.
It is a highly unique class. She is gentle, she is motherly, she constantly calls everyone sweetie, but she survives by feeding on blood. Specifically, the blood generated from Prepotente's kills. It is a symbiotic, slightly disturbing relationship. She keeps him emotionally calm, and he literally feeds her. And they have a new pet as well, Bianca.
Bianca the Hellspawn familiar. It used to be a regular farm goat, and now it is a giant, winged, burning demon goat that smells like sulfur and terror. Even Donut is terrified of her.
The dynamic here is completely fascinating. Prepotente deeply hates Carl. He calls him malodorous. He blames Carl for ruining their very subtle plan to debuff the hunters. They were trying to get the hunters to turn on each other quietly using psychic confusion tactics, and Carl just showed up and blew up the entire city block. Prepotente prefers finesse, and Carl always brings a sledgehammer.
The scene where Miriam forces them to hug and make up is peak comedy for me. You have this terrifying demon goat hovering nearby, a polite vampire lady, a man actively bleeding out on the pavement, and a talking cat, and the vampire mom is making the two grown boys apologize and hug, and Prepotente just screams right into Carl's ear.
It really highlights the sheer absurdity of their reality in the dungeon, but it also formally secures their survival. Miriam is able to heal Carl once the combat debuff finally clears, and they manage to get out of the immediate danger zone. This new alliance is very fragile, but it is absolutely essential for the next phase.
Now, once the dust finally settles in a safe zone, we get a deep look at the new economics of this floor. Carl opens his loot boxes from the Zachau bombing. He receives 34 hunter-killer boxes.
And the contents are incredibly gruesome. He gets gold, yes, which increases by 1,000 per box, but also he gets severed hands.
Just hands, literal hunter hands, left hands, right hands tossed into his inventory.
The dungeon has completely gamified bodily mutilation. These hands act as a literal currency. They are tickets for a special prize counter. It is explicitly designed to mentally dehumanize the hunters to turn them into arcade tokens rather than living, breathing people. If you see an enemy simply as a hand worth of prize, you do not stop to think about their family or their complex backstory. It is a very dark psychological trick by the showrunners to make the crawlers more ruthless and entertaining.
And this macabre currency leads perfectly into the major announcement of the Butcher's Masquerade.
This is a massive plot point that drives the rest of the floor. It is a huge, extravagant party scheduled to be held at the very end of the floor's timer. The guest list includes the top 50 crawlers surviving hunters and various intergalactic celebrities.
It sounds totally insane. They're organizing costume contests, talent shows, and pet beauty pageants in the middle of a death game.
It is a surreal and jarring juxtaposition. The message is basically kill everyone you see, but also please prepare a nice song for the talent show on Friday. It forces the crawlers to focus their energy on trivial things other than pure survival, distracting them or perhaps perversely keeping them somewhat sane.
Donut, of course, completely loses her mind over this. She immediately pivots from desperate survival mode straight into pageant mom mode. She becomes singularly obsessed with winning the pet beauty contest with Mongo, her pet dinosaur.
It is clearly her coping mechanism. Focusing all her anxiety on the pageant allows her to consciously ignore the surrounding horror. If she is obsessing over making sure Mongo scales are shining for the judges, she is not actively worrying about the fact that 1,000 armed aliens want to skin her alive. But there is another major administrative change that forces their strategic hand, which is the guild system.
Right. They officially capped all party sizes at 30 members, which immediately forces the really big groups like the Princess Posse to break up. But then the dungeon offers to sell guild charters for 500,000 gold.
It is a naked cash grab by the Barant showrunners. Purchasing a charter allows players to share personal space upgrades and common living areas regardless of party size, but it costs an absolute fortune. It forces cooperation and the pooling of resources, but it also creates immense financial pressure. It forces Katya, who is Donut's former owner, and the others to form a guild just to stay connected to each other effectively. It drains massive amounts of resources from the crawlers, making them much more desperate. It forces them to actively hunt for loot boxes just to pay the rent, so to speak.
So the team has to split up geographically. Katya and her large group head off one way to secure resources, and Carl and Donut decide to head further south. They need a quiet base of operations. They decide to aim for a mapped Ursine settlement, which are the bear people.
This journey south is where we really see Carl's engineering mind at work once again.
Yeah.
He builds a massive, highly volatile, wheeled bomb. He names it, "Just wait until your daddy gets home."
Such a great name for a bomb.
It is brilliant. It utilizes nitro sludge, which is a dangerous chemical byproduct of brewing basic shield potions. It creates a massive oxygen release explosion when detonated. He initially plans to use Bomo, the NPC mercenary, to physically deliver it into a crowd, but they scrap that plan when they find a highly threatening note from Vra. We will get to the note later. But the specific engineering detail is so cool. Here he is, taking the useless, toxic waste products of his alchemy and repurposing them to create devastating weapons. Literally nothing is wasted in his inventory.
So they finally arrive at the Ursine settlement, and these bears, they aren't the fun, cuddly kind you see in cartoons, nor are they the scary, wild kind you find in the woods.
No, they are explicitly described as repressed, highly judgmental suburbanites. The entire town is perfectly clean, well-kept with manicured lawns, and has incredibly strict homeowner association-style rules. No dancing, no singing, and specifically no dinosaurs allowed within city limits.
Which is an immediate problem because they are traveling with Mongo.
They meet the town leader, Mayor Elmer. He is an Ursine wearing a nice sweater vest, but absolutely no pants, classic bear cartoon trope like Winnie the Pooh, but very angry and bureaucratic. And he is demanding a hefty bribe or the immediate execution of Mongo to grant them entry.
And Donut, she simply does not take this well.
Not at all. She immediately casts his astral paw. It is a spell that creates a giant, glowing, spectral cat paw. She just violently shoves the mayor.
And he falls straight down a steep hill.
It is a moment of pure slapstick tragedy. He bounces and hits absolutely every single rock on the way down. He rolls helplessly into the rushing river at the bottom. And instantly, the very second he hits the water, he's eaten by a naiad.
Just gone. 1 second he is pompously demanding a gold bribe. The next second he is fish food. And because Donut technically killed the town leader, the settlement's specific political mechanics kick in. She happens to have a specific item in her inventory called the Enchanted Collar Charm of the Effete Bourgeoisie.
The naming conventions in this dungeon are just incredible. Effete Bourgeoisie.
It fits perfectly with the suburban bear theme. By wearing this charm, she legally takes over the entire town. She immediately renames the settlement Point Mongo, and she gains a unique mayoral skill called Snitch, which allows her to instantly summon heavily armed bear guards to her exact location.
So now Donut is the undisputed mayor of a town full of repressed, judgmental bears. She renames it after her pet dinosaur. And the system issues her a new mandatory quest called the Recital.
The quest objective is to stop the frequent dinosaur attacks on the town, which is deeply ironic considering the town is now proudly named Point Mongo. It neatly sets them up as the official defenders, giving them a fortified base of operations, but also saddling them with a huge defensive responsibility.
And this territorial responsibility leads us directly into the most bizarre and honestly deeply uncomfortable segment of the entire source material, the dinosaur incident.
Yes. Mongo suddenly runs off deep into the jungle. He is completely entranced by something. Carl and Donut frantically chase after him, fully convinced he's being hunted or lured into a trap. They burst into a jungle clearing and find themselves staring down over 40 angry velociraptors.
Led by a terrifying creature named Kiwi, she is the alpha female of the pack. She is a level 60 one-eyed, heavily scar-faced apex predator. He is incredibly intimidating.
Carl assumes it is a massive boss fight. He is desperately prepping bombs in his inventory. He is terrified. He is thinking, this is it. We are totally overrun. We have to fight our way out. But it isn't a fight at all.
This is a natural mating ritual.
It is. Mongo and Kiwi are engaged in very aggressive, very loud dinosaur intimacy right there in the clearing.
And Carl and Donut are stuck there watching. The system hits them both with a status effect called deer in the headlighted. They literally cannot move their bodies. They just have to stand perfectly still and watch the entire ordeal unfold.
It is profoundly humiliating for them, but it serves a very clever narrative purpose. It establishes the complex ecology of the floor. These dinosaurs aren't just mindless mobs waiting in a room. They have a functioning society. Kiwi is a distinct character. She has agency and desires, and it shows that Mongo is growing up and becoming independent.
Donut's reaction is pure, unadulterated comedy gold. She is so thoroughly scandalized. She is screaming she's too old for him, and he's going to leave me for a hussy. She is acting exactly like an overbearing mother whose innocent son just brought home a hardened biker girlfriend.
But this comedy quickly and sharply pivots to a moment of deep emotional fallout, and I really think this is where the writing elevates itself. After the incredibly awkward incident, they retreat to a secure safe room and e.g. sandwich shop that Donut magically spawns with a token, and Donut experiences a full-blown panic attack.
This scene really grounds the narrative. It completely stops being about the funny dinosaur situation and starts being about Donut's core psychological trauma.
She feels completely abandoned. Katia left their immediate party to go lead her own large group. Mongo ran off into the jungle with Kiwi. Donut is terrified at her core that everyone she loves eventually leaves her behind. She is a prize show cat. She is entirely used to being owned, being pampered and cared for, but also being treated as a beautiful accessory. She is terrified that she isn't genuinely useful enough in a combat scenario to keep around.
And she is hiding a massive secret too, right? The ninth floor curse.
Yes. She knows that because of a specific item she wore earlier, the cocktail dress, she is magically bound and cannot leave the ninth floor until she personally kills the entire Blood Sultanate royal family. It is essentially a guaranteed suicide mission. She internalizes this and thinks she is a dead weight to the team. She truly believes Carl will eventually have to abandon her to survive the game. She is projecting all of that immense fear of abandonment.
And Carl sees right through this panic. He realizes what is happening. The text describes this river in his mind, this cold flowing rage and absolute decision crystallizing inside him. He reaches out and cups her little face and makes a solemn promise. He says, "I will not leave you behind, no matter what."
It is such a pivotal emotional moment. It cements their bond permanently. It is no longer just a man and his pet cat casually trying to survive a crazy situation. It is an equal partnership that transcends all the arbitrary game mechanics. It is pure, unshakable loyalty. It sets the true emotional stakes for the rest of the storyline. Carl isn't just fighting for his own physical survival anymore. He's actively fighting for her soul.
It is the absolute heart of the story. But of course, the broadcast show must go on, and the physical danger isn't even close to being over. We have to talk about the final threats setting up the next segment.
Right. Let's talk about Vra, the sister of Zindi the flying mantis hunter Carl killed with the rocket launcher back in Zakau.
Carl walks up and finds a physical note maliciously stuck to the door of their EG safe room with a combat knife. It is a direct message from Vra. She graphically threatens to crack Carl open and explicitly drink his innards.
It is a highly graphic, deeply hateful threat. She is making the broader conflict incredibly personal. It is not just a television game to her anymore. Carl literally murdered her family member. This isn't about scoring points or climbing the Borant leaderboard. It is about raw, bloody vengeance.
And Carl's immediate response to finding this terrifying note, he calmly takes a pen, writes "come and get a bitch" in the paper, and casually throws it back out the door into the jungle.
He is deliberately provoking her. He is fully leaning into his new class identity as the agent provocateur. He wants the direct fight. He actively wants them angry because angry, emotional people make tactical mistakes in combat. He's willingly inviting the sheer chaos because chaos is the only ladder he knows how to climb effectively in this environment.
So let's look at the final status board as we wrap up our analysis of these very intense first 30 hours. Carl is currently sitting at level 54. Donut is level 41. They have exactly 34 severed hunter hands sitting in their inventory waiting to be cashed in. The floor gates are fully down the level. 70 hunters are completely loose in the jungle, and Kiwi, the terrifying alpha raptor, is still lurking somewhere just outside the borders of Point Mongo.
The massive board is totally set. All the dangerous pieces are aggressively moving into position.
So here's where it gets really philosophically interesting for you as the listener analyzing this. What does this grand overarching structure actually mean? We have this bizarre Butcher's Masquerade event rapidly approaching. The corporate showrunners actively want the surviving crawlers and the hunting assassins to peacefully party together in the same room before going back out to violently kill each other.
It raises a very provocative question about the nature of the broadcast. Is this purely a new form of psychological warfare? By forcefully making them socialize, by forcing the crawlers to see these alien hunters as real beings with distinct personalities, or even just making them share a drink, does it make the eventual killing significantly harder on the psyche? Or conversely, does it make the inevitable betrayal that much sweeter and more dramatic for the billions of unseen audience members watching safely at home?
And look at how it specifically affects the players. With Donut's new class, literally and mechanically dependent on live musical performance, on singing perfectly, on being a literal diva, is the dungeon fundamentally forcing them to become performing entertainers, simply to earn the right to survive? Are they slowly being molded into just dancing monkeys for the camera?
That is the ultimate creeping horror of the crawl, isn't it? You can train to survive the traps, you can outsmart the terrifying monsters, but can you actually survive the slow psychological degradation of becoming exactly the kind of shiny, violent product the audience desperately wants you to be? Can you manage to keep your human soul intact when the only possible way to stay alive is to constantly put on an entertaining show?
That is a very heavy thought to chew on as we close out. We're going to wrap up our analysis right there. This sixth floor is rapidly shaping up to be an absolute bloodbath, neatly wrapped inside a sparkly corporate variety show. Thank you so much for diving into the mechanics and the madness with us today.
Stay safe out there in the jungle.